Mount St. Helens is the most dangerous one, right? I'm thinking in my mind without looking it up and using Google and all of that, even though it's right in my hand. I'm thinking that one's the most dangerous, right? While y'all putting that in the comment section, let's check out a video on it then. Let's go.
Significance. Since February this year, 1,368 small earthquakes have been recorded at Mount St. Helens. Most of these quakes were less than magnitude 1, which is too small to be felt at the surface. They occurred at a median depth of around 3.5 miles below sea level. The largest recorded earthquake was a magnitude 2 in May this year, and there was a peak of 38 earthquakes in a week in early June. The United States Geological Survey believes that this elevated seismic activity could indicate the volcano is going through a process called recharge, which involves the arrival of additional magma. While the risk of eruption has increased, it's important to note that Mount St. Helens is a fascinating and active stratovolcano in Scotia County, Washington, nestled in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. It was named after Aline Fitzherbert, the first Baron St. Helens, who was a friend of the explorer George Vancouver.
So which one is worse? Because y'all already know how I feel about Yellowstone. Which one is worse? I mean, they both deadly. They both gonna get the job done, probably wiping most of us out. But which one is worse though? St. Helens or Yellowstone? Put it in the comment section.
Vancouver surveyed the area back in the late 18th century. It is part of the Cascade Volcanic Arc, which is a segment of the Pacific Ring of Fire. Mount St. Helens is situated 34 miles west of Mount Adams in the Western Cascade Range. These two are often called brother and sister mountains due to their proximity and volcanic nature. They are about 50 miles from Mount Rainier, which is the tallest of the Cascade volcanoes. To the southeast, you'll find Mount Hood, another major volcanic peak in Oregon, 60 miles away from Mount St. Helens. Unlike its older siblings, Mount St. Helens is geologically young. It formed in the past 40,000 years, and its summit cone, which existed before the 1980 eruption, began to rise about 2,200 years ago. Among the Cascade volcanoes, Mount St. Helens is the most active, especially within the Holocene epoch, which covers the last 10,000 years. Imagine standing before what was once the fifth highest peak in Washington. It was truly a sight to behold, often compared to Japan's Mount Fuji, earning it the nickname Fujisan of America for its striking symmetry in extensive snow and ice cover. Before the eruption, Mount St. Helens was a majestic 5,000 feet taller than its base, with its lower slopes blending seamlessly into the nearby ridges. At the bottom, the mountain spans 6 miles across, resting at an elevation of about 4,400 feet on the northeastern side and 4,000 feet elsewhere. Closer to the summit, the cone measured 4 miles wide at the tree line. The mountain's ice cover included 11 named glaciers: Wishbone, Lewitt, Leshy, Forsyth, Nelson, Ape, Shoestring, Swift, Dryer, Toutle, and Talus. After the eruption, only the Shoestring Glacier showed any signs of revival. But that's not all. The streams originating from Mount St. Helens feed into 3 main rivers: the Toutle River to the north and northwest, the Kalama River to the west, and the Lewis River to the south and east. These streams are nourished by substantial rain and snow, with an average annual rainfall of 140 inches and snowpacks on the upper slopes reaching up to 16 feet. The Lewis River plays a crucial role in hydroelectric power generation. 3 dams on this river harness its flow, and the southern and eastern sides of the volcano drain into the Swift Reservoir, located just south of the peak. Let's talk about the fascinating Crater Glacier, which made its grand debut during the winter of 1980 to 1981. Originally called the Tulutzen Glacier, this ice giant began forming in the shadowy recesses of the crater walls. Fueled by heavy snowfall and frequent snow avalanches, it expanded rapidly, thickening by about 14 feet each year. By 2004, Crater Glacier spanned approximately 0.36 square miles and was split into western and eastern sections by a volcanic dome. By late summer, the glacier often appears dark due to rockfall from the crater walls and ash from volcanic eruptions. As of 2006, the glacier's ice had an average thickness of 300 feet, with the thickest parts reaching up to 650 feet. This depth rivals that of the much older and larger Carbon Glacier on Mount Rainier. Remarkably, all of this ice has formed since 1980, making Crater Glacier quite young in geological terms. Its total volume is roughly equivalent to that of all the pre-1980 glaciers in the area combined. Starting in 2004, volcanic activity began to reshape the glacier, pushing its lobes aside and causing the formation of new volcanic domes. This upheaval transformed the glacier's surface into a chaotic landscape of ice falls, crevasses, and seracs due to the shifting crater floor. The growth of these new domes nearly split Crater Glacier into two separate lobes. Despite the ongoing volcanic activity, the glacier's termini continued to advance. The western lobe advanced slightly, while the more shaded eastern lobe saw a more significant progression. By late May 2008, the two lobes had rejoined, completely encircling the lava domes. Since 2004, new glaciers have also formed on the crater walls above Crater Glacier, contributing additional rock and ice to its surface. Mount St. Helens is part of the Cascades Volcanic Province, an arc-shaped region stretching from southwestern British Columbia to northern California, roughly following the Pacific coastline. This area is fascinating due to the geological process called subduction, where a dense oceanic plate sinks beneath the North American plate. Imagine the oceanic slab sinking deep into the Earth. As it goes down, the high temperatures and pressures cause water molecules trapped in the minerals to escape. This superheated water then rises into the flexible mantle above, leading to some of it melting. This newly formed magma starts moving upwards through the crust, finding its way through fractures and faults, and even melting some of the surrounding rock. As this magma ascends, it changes the chemical composition of the crust it melts. Some of this melt eventually erupts on the surface, forming the Cascade Volcanic Arc, which includes Mount St. Helens. Beneath Mount St. Helens, the magma has accumulated in two chambers. The upper chamber lies about 3 to 7 miles below the surface, while the lower chamber is deeper, about 7 to 25 miles down. This lower chamber might even be connected to Mount Adams and the Indian Heaven volcanic field. Mount St. Helens's early eruptions are categorized into stages. The Ape Canyon stage occurred around 40 to 35,000 years ago, the Cougar stage around 20 to 18,000 years ago, and the Swift Creek stage roughly 13 to 8,000 years ago. The current period, starting around 2500 BC, is called the Spirit Lake stage. The stages before the Spirit Lake stage are collectively known as the Ancestral stages. What's intriguing is the difference in the composition of the erupted lavas between these stages. The Ancestral stages featured a mix of dacite and andesite, while modern eruptions have shown a variety of lava types, ranging from olivine basalt to andesite and dacitum. Mount St. Helens began growing around 37,600 years ago during the Pleistocene epoch. This early stage, known as the Ape Canyon stage, featured dramatic eruptions of dacite and andesite, spewing hot pumice and ash. Around 36,000 years ago, a massive mudflow cascaded down the volcano, highlighting the significant role that mudflows have played throughout St. Helens's. Eruptive cycles. After a period of intense activity, the Ape Canyon stage ended about 35,000 years ago, ushering in 17,000 years of relative calm. During this time,
I hate to hear numbers like that. Man, I hate to hear the word calm, meaning it's been calm this long. Y'all should have been expecting it. Like, and then listening to the video, man, Elon don't sound so crazy, fam. I'm ready to hop on board. Mars, where y'all want to go? Mars, the moon, where y'all want to set up camp at? Because these jokers feel like it could go at any moment. You know, I know they add an extra little flair to it to make the video sound good or whatever, but they don't even need to do that for me to think it's any moment, any day now. It could happen.
Glaciers fragmented and transported parts of the volcano's ancestral cone between 14 and 18,000 years ago. Next, we have the Cougar stage, which began 20,000 years ago and lasted for 2,000 years. This period saw pyroclastic flows of hot pumice and ash, along with the growth of volcanic domes. Following this activity, the volcano experienced another 5,000 years of dormancy. The Swift Creek eruptive period then began, marked by pyroclastic flows, dome growth, and widespread tephra deposits. This phase ended 8,000 years ago, leading to a 4,000-year quiet period. Around 2,500 BC, the Smith Creek eruptive period kicked off, bringing significant eruptions that covered thousands of square miles with ash and yellowish-brown pumice. One notable eruption in 1900 BC was the largest during the Holocene epoch, spreading the Wayan tephra far and wide. This period lasted until about 1600 BC, leaving deposits as deep as 18 inches up to 50 miles away, even reaching Mount Rainier National Park. Trace deposits have been found as far as Banff National Park in Alberta and eastern Oregon, totaling up to 2.5 cubic miles of ejected material. This was followed by another 400 years of dormancy. Mount St. Helens reawakened around 1200 BC with the Pine Creek eruptive period, which continued until about 800 BC. This period featured smaller volume eruptions in numerous dense, nearly red-hot pyroclastic flows that raced down the volcano's flanks, coming to rest in nearby valleys. A notable event during this time was a large mudflow that partly filled 40 miles of the Lewis River Valley, sometime between 1000 BC and 500 BC. Next, we move to the Castle Creek period, which began around 400 BC. This period is notable for a shift in Mount St. Helens's lava composition with the introduction of olivine and basalt. During this time, the pre-1980 summit cones started to take shape. Unlike previous periods dominated by fragmented and pulverized lavas and rocks, the Castle Creek period saw significant lava flows. For example, around 100 BC, a large lava flow extended into the Lewis and Kalama River valleys. Other lava flows, such as the well-known cave basalt, with its intricate system of lava tubes, traveled up to 9 miles from their vents. In the 1st century, mud flows carried debris 30 miles down the Toutle and Kalama River valleys, possibly reaching the Columbia River. This dynamic period was followed by another 400 years of dormancy. Then came the brief but unique Sugar Bowl eruptive period, which stands out in Mount St. Helens's history. This period produced the only confirmed laterally directed blast before the famous 1980 eruptions. Initially, the volcano erupted quietly to form a dome, but it later erupted violently at least twice, generating a small volume of tephra, directed blast deposits, pyroclastic flows, and lahars. During this time, East Dome, a small dacite dome, rich in hypersthene and hornblende, formed on the east slope of the volcano, likely around the Sugar Bowl period. This dome's formation was preceded by an explosive eruption. Around 700 years of quietness came to an end around 1480, when there were significant eruptions of pale gray dacite pumice and ash, marking the start of the Kalama period. This eruption in 1480 was much larger than the one on May 18, 1980 by several times. In 1482, another massive eruption, comparable in volume to the 1980 eruption, also took place. The ash and pumice reached up to 6 miles northeast of the volcano with a thickness of 3 feet and was found 50 miles away with a depth of 2 inches. This led to significant flows of hot volcanic material and mud rushing down the west side of St. Helens and into the Kalama River area. Over the next 150 years, there were eruptions of less silica-rich lava, forming layers of andesitic ash with alternating light and dark colors. Blocky andesite lava flowed from the summit crater down the southeast flank of St. Helens. This was followed by pyroclastic flows that moved over the andesite lava and into the Kalama River Valley. The period ended with the formation of a dacite dome, several hundred feet high, at the summit of the volcano. Parts of this dome collapsed, covering parts of the volcano with debris. Explosions on the side of the crater also occurred, shaping the southeast wall. By the end of the Kalama eruptive cycle around 1647, St. Helens had reached its highest point and had a symmetrical shape. The volcano then remained quiet for the next 150 years until the start of the 57-year eruptive period in 1800, known as the Goat Rocks period. This period began with an explosion of dacite tephra, followed by the flow of andesite lava, and ended with the formation of a dacite dome. The eruption in 1800 was likely comparable in size to the 1980 eruption, although it did not cause as much destruction to the cone. The ash from this eruption drifted northeast over Washington, Idaho, and Montana.
Yeah, my parents never talked to me about the 1980, and I heard them reference it a couple times now throughout this video, and each time I'm thinking, trying to go back in my mind, and I don't remember my family ever talking to me about volcano eruptions. It's just never been something that's been brought up as a topic in my household. Any of y'all talked about it? Like, I don't even, well, I wasn't born, so I don't know who I can ask that would have been born. I'm gonna ask my pops. When I get off of this video, does he remember or recall it happening, or what happened around that time, or what was he made aware, or is it something that he found out down the line about it? Was it breaking news? Did it come across the screen, the TV, or the radio back then, whatever they was able to listen to back then? I'm interested to know from their perspective, not just from scientific and from their information and stuff like that. Interested though. I'm kind of mad at the fact that nobody talked to me about this.
Several smaller eruptions occurred between 1831 and 1857, including a significant one in 1842. The vent for these eruptions was likely near Goat Rocks on the northeast side. The Goat Rocks Dome, located near the bulge that formed in 1980, was destroyed in the major eruption on May 18, 1980, which wiped out the entire north face and the top 1,300 feet of the mountain. Back in March 1980, Mount St. Helens had a big shakeup with a 4.2 magnitude earthquake, and a week later, steam started coming out. By the end of April, the north side of the mountain looked like it was puffing out. Then on May 18, another big shake, this time a 5.1 magnitude one, caused a massive chunk of the north side to collapse. This collapse was the largest avalanche of rocks and dirt ever recorded. The hot stuff inside the mountain, called magma, shot out like a giant explosion, flattening everything in its path for about 230 square miles. It also released a massive amount of sulfur dioxide gas into the air. This eruption was a big deal, rated a 5 on the eruption scale. It made a type of eruption called a Plinian eruption, which is the most powerful kind. When the north side fell, it mixed with ice, snow, and water, creating fast-moving mud flows called lahars. These lahars rushed down the rivers nearby, wrecking bridges and forests along the way. A huge amount of material, about 3,900,000 cubic yards, traveled 17 miles south into the Columbia River. For more than 9 hours, a big cloud of ash kept coming out, reaching as high as 12 to 16 miles above sea level. This ash cloud moved quickly east, reaching Idaho by noon.
And I bet a lot of them didn't know enough to be like, yo, this ash could create a problem. Gets in the atmosphere, gets trapped, drops the temperature low, send us possibly into an ice age that we wasn't expecting. I guarantee, I know my family wouldn't have thought about that. They still probably don't even think about that type of stuff. My mom's no longer here, but my pops. I guarantee if I call him right now, I'll be like, yo, you worried about Mount St. Helens? Yellowstone? He'd be like, no, why? Just not something that they're even thinking about. And not on no, if it happens type of stuff, because everybody thinks like that. Most people be like, well, what can I do? But from a standpoint of being aware of it, he would be totally unaware.
Ash fell on cars and roofs far away, even in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. By the evening of May 18, the ash cloud got smaller, but smaller eruptions continued for days. This big eruption let out a whopping 24 megatons of heat energy and threw out over 0.67 cubic miles of stuff. The mountain lost about 1,300 feet of height and got a huge crater in return. Sadly, the eruption caused a lot of damage and loss. It took the lives of 57 people, thousands of animals, and millions of fish from a fish hatchery. It also wrecked hundreds of homes, many miles of roads and railways. Even after the big eruption in 1980, Mount St. Helens kept being active until the mid-90s, with small explosions and new lava forming in the crater. Around October 11, 2004, magma made its way up to the surface of Mount St. Helens, creating a new lava dome on the south side of the old one. This new dome kept growing in 2005 and 2006. Some cool but temporary features showed up, like a tall piece of hardened magma called the whaleback. This whaleback was magma squeezing out under pressure, but it didn't last long before breaking apart. On July 2, 2005, part of the whaleback fell off, causing a rockfall that sent ash and dust up into the air. Things got lively again on March 8, 2005, with a steam and ash plume shooting up 36,000 feet high, so high that folks in Seattle could see it. This wasn't a major eruption, just a release of pressure as the dome kept growing. It came with a small earthquake too. Another interesting feature was the fin, or slab, that popped out of the dome. It was about half the size of a football field and was rising at a speedy 6 feet per day. By mid-June 2006, the slab started breaking apart in rockfalls, even though it was still growing. The dome's height reached 7,550 feet, but that was still lower than when the whaleback collapsed in July 2005. On October 22, 2006, at 3:13 p.m., a magnitude 3.5 earthquake shook loose Spine 7 of the dome. This caused part of the dome to collapse, sending ash 2,000 feet into the air before it quickly settled down. In December 2006, there was some confusion when a big white cloud of steam appeared. Some thought it was a small eruption, but experts from the USGS said it wasn't a big deal. The volcano had been gradually spitting out lava since 2004, forming the dome inside the crater. Things got a bit tense in January 2008 when steam started coming out of a crack on top of the dome, and there was more seismic activity than usual. Scientists paused their work near the crater and the mountain sides, but they didn't think a major eruption was likely. By the end of January, the eruption slowed down, and by July 10, 2008, it was officially over after more than 6 months without any volcanic action. It's predicted that future eruptions of Mount St. Helens could be even more powerful than the one in 1980. The way the lava domes are set up now means that a lot more pressure would build up before the next eruption, leading to more damage. If a big eruption happens, ash could spread over a massive area of about 40,000 square miles. This would cause major disruptions in transportation and daily life. There's also a high chance of a large mudflow, called a lahar, flowing down the branches of the Toutle River. This could cause serious damage in areas along the I-5 corridor where people live and travel. Mount St. Helens' eruption has been extensively studied by ecologists, more so than any other eruption. This is because researchers started studying the effects right after the eruption, and because the eruption didn't destroy the area. In fact, over half of the studies on how ecosystems respond to volcanic eruptions come from research on Mount St. Helens. One big idea that came from studying Mount St. Helens is the idea of biological legacy. This means the living things that survive a big disturbance. These survivors could be plants that managed to survive the ashfall or the intense flow of volcanic debris. They could also be organic matter or patterns in nature that were there before the disturbance. These survivors play a huge role in how the area bounces back after the disturbance. After the eruption in 1980, some species from every level of the food chain survived. This helped the food webs recover relatively quickly. However, larger animals didn't fare as well. Animals like mountain goats, elk, deer, black bears, and cougars were hit hard, with many dying off completely. Over time, though, these larger animals started coming back to the area. However, with the vegetation still recovering, many elk couldn't find enough food and died during the harsh winters. By 2014, the mountain goat population had started to grow again, reaching 65 members. By 2015, it had more than doubled to 152. Mountain goats are important to the Cowlitz tribe, who have a historical connection to them. The tribe used to gather shed tufts of goat wool left on this mountain. They've been keeping an eye on the goat population, which is rebounding on its own without human help. In the Mount St. Helens area, there have been many cases of people disappearing since the 1980 eruption. One notable incident involved a few brave individuals who reached the peak of the mountain's new summit, capturing photos and videos of their journey. One particular story that garnered attention was Lance's. He hiked to the highest point of the crater, recording the volcanic landscape on a VHS recorder. Sadly, on his way back home to Seattle, Lance was in a severe car accident with a bus, resulting in his death. However, his camera survived the crash. Several others attempted the climb to Mount St. Helens' summit until 2000, only to vanish without a trace. In 2001, a visitor and his family hiked to the mountain's rim, taking numerous photos for a scrapbook. During their descent, the man stopped to take another picture from a high rock with a better view. When the family regrouped, they realized the man had disappeared. The children mentioned seeing a peculiar man who resembled their father. This man clapped loudly behind the father, making funny faces before the father vanished mysteriously. While the children found it amusing and thought it was a joke, the father was never found, despite extensive search efforts yielding no clues. These disappearances remain mysteries, leaving behind questions and intrigue about what happened to those who ventured into the Mount St. Helens area. Very Terry, an enthusiastic vlogger, embarked on a thrilling adventure to Mount St. Helens along with his team. Their mission? To create an awe-inspiring nature documentary showcasing the breathtaking landscapes of the Pacific Northwest.
And we was just talking a few videos back about the incident where somebody in their crew, they were going up and they were all tethered to this rope, and one dude slipped back, and when he fell and he put the spike into the snow to catch himself, to stop him from falling, he looked over, it was a body. It was a body in the snow from another group that had previously tried to scale the mountain. Like, you hear these stories, but man, to hear something like that, to discover a body that way, crazy.
Little did they know that this journey would take an unexpected turn, weaving a tale of misfortune and mystery. As Very Terry ascended to the pinnacle of Mount St. Helens, capturing mesmerizing footage along the way, their excitement was palpable. However, fate had a different plan in store. At the summit, while documenting the majestic Devil's Incline, disaster struck. Their sturdy climbing rope, essential for safety, suddenly snapped, causing Terry to lose balance and sprain their ankle. It was a painful setback, but little did they know it was just the beginning of a series of unfortunate events. Stranded at an altitude of 8,400 feet, with no immediate help in sight and limited communication due to the remote location, Terry faced a daunting challenge. They had to traverse over 2 miles through dense forests with a throbbing ankle, a test of endurance and resilience.
Y'all think you finna say they ate each other and one was left? Anybody else thinking that? Like one of the movies, Alive or something like that, whatever that movie name was. You in the cold, you up a mountain, nobody's coming, which I don't understand why y'all do this when you know if something happens, it'll be so long before somebody realizes you're gone and then try to rescue you. Chances of your survival, slim.
Finally reaching their camp, relief was short-lived as nature's fury unleashed. A torrential downpour flooded the only dirt road leading to the trailhead, rendering it impassable. Trapped amidst nature's wrath, Terry found themselves marooned for 2 agonizing days until the road was cleared. The ordeal didn't end there. Seeking medical aid in Vancouver, Terry encountered a bizarre twist of fate. A doctor's error led to misread x-rays and a faulty diagnosis, neglecting the severity of Terry's foot injury. Unknown to them, their foot silently battled an infection, worsening by the day. The consequences were dire: a permanently disabled foot and a lower leg maimed, altering Terry's life trajectory. Despite the physical toll, Terry's spirit remained. Unbroken, they persevered, navigating through financial strains and persistent pain. A silver lining emerged in the form of a pension, enabling them to realize a long-held dream: a quaint cabin nestled amidst serene landscapes. However, fate's cruel hand struck again. The sanctuary of their cabin was shattered by a ruthless break-in, leaving Terry devastated and devoid of their cherished belongings, including crucial equipment for their vlogs. It was a crushing blow, robbing them of their passion and livelihood. Amidst adversity, Terry turned to online platforms, sharing snippets of their tumultuous journey. The last glimpse of their digital presence was a haunting image, an erupting Mount St. Helens, a symbolic farewell to a chapter marked by trials and resilience.